Luna Station was a city in space. Built in the shadow of Earth's moon, it was where the human fleet gathered when war called. Ships of all sizes filled the darkness around the station. Big ships, small ships, and ships so new their paint still smelled fresh. Captain Kim Do-young stood on the bridge of his ship, the Iron Will. The ship was huge, as big as a mountain. Its metal walls were thick as a man's height. Guns covered its surface like spikes on a dangerous animal. These were not energy weapons like other species used. These were railguns that fired solid metal at speeds that could crack planets. Status. Report, Do-young said to his crew. All weapons loaded and ready, said his weapons officer. Tungsten slugs, depleted uranium rounds, and the new armor-piercing cores. Reactor at full power, said the engineer. All systems green. Do-young nodded. He was not a tall man, but his presence filled the bridge. His crew trusted him. They knew he would bring them home. He had done it before in the Mars colonial wars, when rebels tried to break away from Earth. Those fights had been brutal. This would be worse. Nearby, the assault carrier Storm's Edge prepared for launch. Major Choi Hyeri walked through the hangar bay, checking her fighters. Each small ship was built for war. They carried pilots who had trained in the worst places humans could find. The radiation fields around Jupiter, the ice storms of Europa, the crushing gravity wells near black holes. How are we looking? Hyeri asked her squadron leaders. Ready. To fly, ready to fight, said squadron leader Han Junho. His face was scarred from a training accident on Titan. The cold there was so bad it could freeze air solid, but Junho had survived. It made him stronger. What about weapons load? Asked squadron leader Song Mi-young. She was small and quick, the best pilot in the fleet. Plasma charges, cryobombs, and kinetic missiles, said the weapons chief. We can hit them with fire and ice at the same time. See how they adapt to that. At the edge of the fleet, something special waited. The Terra's Wrath was not like other human ships. It was smaller, faster, and more dangerous than anything else. In space. Captain Nam Tai-hyun had designed half the weapons himself. He was crazy, everyone said. Crazy enough to mount antimatter torpedoes on a ship and live to tell about it. Are you sure this will work? Asked his science officer, looking at the torpedo bays. Of course not, said Tae-hyun with a grin. That is what makes it fun. The torpedoes were beautiful and terrible. Each one contained enough antimatter to destroy a small moon. When they hit something, matter and antimatter would touch. The explosion would be like a tiny star being born. There would be nothing left but light and heat. While the fleet prepared, Dr. Yoon Seola worked in her lab. She studied the samples the aliens had sent, pieces of Ravager ships, dead tissue from the creatures, information about how they fought and adapted. Interesting, she said to her computer. They changed their biology to match each threat. Energy weapons make them grow heat-resistant skin. Radiation makes them develop shielding organs. She looked closer at the data. The Ravagers were smart, but they were also limited. They could only adapt to things they understood. Energy, heat, radiation, electromagnetic fields. These were things they had faced before in their long journey across the galaxy. But what happens, Seola asked herself, when they meet something completely new? She brought up files on human weapons, kinetic projectiles moving at incredible speeds, chemical explosives that created pressure waves, nuclear weapons that combined heat, radiation, and physical force all at once, things the Ravagers had never seen. They are going to be surprised, she said with a smile. Back on the station, Admiral Minho met with his ship commanders. The war room was full of officers, each one a veteran of human conflicts. They had fought pirates in the asteroid belt. They had hunted rebels in the outer planets. They had kept Earth safe when the galaxy thought humans were too dangerous to live. The enemy has numbers, Minho said, pointing to the tactical display. Reports say 10,000 ships, maybe more. They adapt to weapons, they heal damage, and they learn from every fight. What about their tactics? Asked Captain Do-young. Simple, said Commander Ji-won, who had studied the alien reports. They swarm, they surround, they overwhelm with numbers. No complex strategies, no clever tricks, just brute force. Sounds familiar, said Major Hieri. Like fighting insects. Exactly like fighting insects, said Minho. And what do we do to insects? We step on them, said Captain Taehyun. The room laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was the laugh of predators who had found easy prey. The aliens are scared, Minho continued. They have been fighting the same way for thousands of years. Energy weapons, shields, formations that look pretty but do not work. The Ravagers eat energy, so energy weapons make them stronger. What about their own ships? Asked Captain Lee Sun-hee. Weak, said Ji-won. Thin armor, no backup systems. Crews that die if the life support fails for 5 minutes. They have never fought in a real war. We have, said Minho. We grew up in a war. Every day on Earth is a war. War against the weather, war against the ground, war against the air itself. We win because we have to win. There is no other choice. The meeting continued for hours. They planned attack patterns, supply lines, and emergency procedures. But the real planning had been done long ago, in the dark between the stars, when humans learned to fight anything that threatened their survival. One more thing, said Dr. Ciola, joining the meeting late. I analyzed their adaptation process. It takes time. Maybe an hour to adapt to a new weapon, maybe less. So we hit them with everything at once, said Do-young. No, said Ciola. We hit them with things they cannot adapt to. Physical force, kinetic energy, temperature shock, things that follow the laws of physics, not technology. In other words, said Taehyun, we fight like humans. 2 days later, the fleet was ready. 50 ships of various sizes, carrying enough firepower to crack a planet. The crews were ready too. Men and women who had grown up in the hardest place in the galaxy, trained to fight in conditions that would kill most life forms. All ships report ready, said Commander Ji-won. Course laid in for the war zone, said the navigation officer. Admiral Minho sat in his command chair looking out at his fleet. These were not the pretty ships the aliens used. These were working ships, built for function over form. Gray metal and sharp angles, weapons that looked like weapons, armor that looked like armor. Open a channel to the fleet, he said. Channel open, sir. This is Admiral Minho to all ships, he said, his voice carrying to every person in the fleet. We go to war today. Not for glory, not for conquest, but because someone asked for help. We are human. We do not abandon those who call to us. He paused, thinking of Earth spinning in space behind them. The enemy thinks they are the most dangerous things in the galaxy. They have eaten 17 star systems. They have defeated every fleet sent against them. They think they cannot be stopped. Another pause. They are about to meet Deathworlders. The fleet moved out, heading for the war zone at faster than light speed. Behind them, Earth continued its endless dance around the sun, a blue and white marble that had given birth to something the galaxy had never seen before. Somewhere ahead, the Ravager swarm continued its feast, eating everything in its path. They had no idea what was coming for them. Death was coming. Death in metal ships, carried by creatures that had learned to fight before they learned to walk. The humans were on their way. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen such panic. Beings from across the galaxy sat in their floating seats, their voices creating a noise that hurt the ears. Some were crying. Others were shaking with fear. All of them were afraid. Ambassador Thylix stood in the center of the hall. His tall, thin body moved like a tree in the wind. His forearms waved as he spoke. His voice was high and sharp, cutting through the noise like a knife. 17 star systems, he said. 17 entire star systems are gone. Eaten, destroyed. The Ravager swarm has taken them all. The hall became quiet. Dead quiet. Every being looked at Thylix. They knew what this meant. The Ravagers were not just any enemy. They were living ships, bug-like creatures that ate everything in their path. Planets, moons, even stars if they had enough time. How many ships did they have? Asked Counselor Zephyra. She was made of living crystal, and her body sparkled in the light. At first, maybe 1,000, Thylix said. Now we think 10,000, maybe more. They grow fast, they eat, and they make more ships from what they eat. A sound like thunder came from the back of the hall. It was High Admiral Korthak of the IE, Deep Current Empire. His body was like water, always moving and changing shape. When he was angry, he made sounds like a storm. My fleets fought them at Sector 9, Korthak said. We lost 800 ships. Our best weapons did nothing. The creatures learned from each attack, they changed their bodies. Our energy beams became useless in minutes. More voices joined in. The Nexari had lost their home fleet. The Luminoids could not even touch the Ravagers with their light weapons. Every species had the same story. The Ravagers adapted. They learned. They became stronger. What about the Titan-class weapons? Asked someone from the crowd. Use them, said Thylix. Planet killers, star crackers, void bombs. The Ravagers ate the energy. They made themselves stronger. Fear filled the hall like a bad smell. Some beings started to leave. They wanted to run back to their homeworlds and hide. But where could they hide? The Ravagers were spreading like a disease. Soon, there would be nowhere left to run. Old Counselor Vex floated to the center of the hall. He was the oldest being there, maybe. The oldest in the galaxy. His body was like smoke, always changing. When he spoke, everyone listened. There is one option, Vex said. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard him. One group we have not asked for help. Who? Asked Thylix. Vex was quiet for a long time. Then he said the words that made everyone afraid. The Deathworlders. The hall exploded with noise. Beings jumped from their seats. Some screamed. Others tried to leave. The name Deathworlders was not spoken lightly. It was a word that meant fear. It was a word that meant death. You cannot be serious, said Counselor Zephyra. Her crystal body was flashing red with anger. They are monsters, savages. They come from the worst planet in the galaxy. A planet that tried to kill them every day, said Vex. And they lived. They grew strong. They became something we cannot understand. The beings in the hall knew the stories. Everyone knew about Terra, the Death World, a planet covered in poison and death. The air was toxic. The gravity crushed most life forms. The weather could kill with heat or cold. The ground shook and split open. Fire came from the mountains. Water fell from the sky like stones. And somehow, life grew there. Not just any life. Smart life. The humans. They have been quiet for 50 years, said Thylix. We do not even know if they are still alive. Oh, they are alive, said Vex. My scouts report ships around their world. Big ships. Strange ships. Ships that do not use our technology. The hall became quiet again. Everyone was thinking the same thing. If they called the humans, what would happen? Would the humans help, or would they take over? They are not part of our civilization, said High Admiral Korthak. They follow no rules. They understand no mercy. They are death itself. Yes, said Vex. And that is exactly what we need. The vote was close, very close. But fear of the Ravagers was stronger than fear of the humans. The message would be sent to Terra. 3 days later, Admiral Kang Minho stood on the bridge of Terra Defense Station. The station was huge, bigger than most cities. It floated in space above Earth, watching and waiting. Minho was a big man with scars on his face and hands. His hair was gray from too many battles. His eyes were hard like stone. The message from the Galactic Council played on the main screen. Minho watched without moving. Around him, his officers did the same. Commander Park Ji-won stood to his right. She was smaller than Minho, but her eyes were sharp like a knife. She could see things others missed. She could find ways to win fights that seemed impossible. Captain Lee Sun-hee stood to his left. She was young, maybe 30 years old, but she had never lost a battle. Her ships moved like dancers in space, her weapons hit like thunder from heaven. The message ended. The bridge was quiet. Minho looked at his officers. "Well," he said. "They are scared," said Jiwan. "Look at their data. Energy weapons only. Shield technology from 1,000 years ago. They fight like children." "The enemy sounds dangerous," said Sunhee. "These Ravager things adapt to everything." Minho smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who had seen too much death and learned to enjoy the fight. "Show them our files on the creatures," he said. The screen filled with data. Pictures of the Ravager ships. Information about their weapons and armor. How they moved and fought. Jiwan studied the information. Biological ships. They heal damage. They learn from attacks. They change their bodies to resist new weapons. "Impressive," said Sunhee. "But look here, they only adapt to energy-based attacks. All their changes are for dealing with heat and electromagnetic fields." Minho nodded. "And what do we use?" "Kinetic weapons," said Jiwan. "Solid projectiles. Chemical explosives, nuclear fire. Things that do not care about adaptation." "They have never fought Deathworlders," said Sunhee. "They do not know what we are." Minho walked to the big window that looked out at Earth. The blue and white planet, turned slowly in space, beautiful and deadly. Home. "Send word to the fleet commanders," he said. "Full mobilization, combat loadout. We leave for the war zone in 72 hours. "What should we tell the aliens?" asked Jiwan. Minho turned back to his officers. His smile was bigger now, more dangerous. "Tell them help is coming," he said. "Tell them the Deathworlders have heard their call, and tell them to stay out of our way." The officers saluted and left to prepare. Minho stood alone on the bridge, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, creatures of nightmare were eating worlds. They thought they were the most dangerous things in the galaxy. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The humans were coming, and they were bringing hell with them. The Ravager breeding world was a nightmare made real. It hung in space like a diseased moon, its surface crawling with billions of larvae and worker creatures. Bioships grew in vast organic shipyards that stretched across continents. The hive, mind's most precious children, were born here, in pools of acid and genetic soup. It was also the key to everything. Destroy the breeding world, and the Ravager swarm would slowly die out. Let it survive, and new swarms would spread across the galaxy until every star was consumed. Admiral Minho stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the tactical display with cold eyes. The breeding world was defended by more ships than he had ever seen in one place. Thousands of bio-vessels surrounded it in layers, from small fighters to massive dreadnoughts the size of asteroids. "Sensor analysis complete," reported Commander G1. "Enemy fleet strength estimated at 15,000 ships, with more launching from the surface every hour." "What about ground defenses?" asked Captain Sunhee. "Extensive," said Dr. Ciola, who had been studying the world from her science station. "Biocannons that can hit targets in orbit, atmospheric processors that create toxic clouds, and what appears to be a planetary shield generator." "Good," said Minho. "If it was easy, they would not have needed us." The human fleet had grown during their journey to the breeding world. More ships had arrived from Earth and the colonies, carrying supplies, ammunition, and fresh crews. But they were still outnumbered 20 to 1. In any sane military doctrine, this would be called a suicide mission. Humans had never been accused of following sane military doctrine. "All ships, prepare for final assault," Minho commanded. "Remember, we are not here to capture or study. We are here to end this threat permanently." Captain Kim Do-young checked his weapons one last time. The Iron Will carried enough firepower to level a small city, but looking at the enemy fleet, he wondered if it would be enough. "Sir," said his weapons officer, "we are detecting massive energy buildup from the breeding world. They are charging some kind of superweapon." "Let them charge," said Do-young grimly. "We will not give them time to fire it." The attack began with Captain Taehyun's Terra's Wrath making a suicide run at the planet's orbital defenses. His ship was fast and small, but it carried the most dangerous weapons in the human fleet. "This is Taehyun to all ships," he said over the comm, his voice calm and cheerful. I am going to make a hole in their defenses. Try not to miss it. Terra's wrath dove through the enemy fleet like a bullet through glass. Bioships tried to intercept it, but Taehyun's piloting was beyond anything they could predict. He flew, his ship like it was part of his own body, dancing between enemy weapons with impossible grace. Antimatter torpedoes armed, he said to his crew. Target the planetary shield generator. Sir, that will require us to get within their point defense range, said his weapons officer. I know, said Taehyun. It has been an honor serving with you all. The small ship plunged toward the breeding world's surface, enemy fire lighting up the space around it. Bioacid ate through the hull in several places, but Terra's wrath kept flying. Nothing would stop it now. Firing all torpedoes, said Taehyun. 6. Antimatter torpedoes launched simultaneously, their trails of light converging on the massive shield generator complex. The Ravagers tried to shoot them down, but the torpedoes were too fast and too small. The explosions were visible from orbit, 6 tiny suns blooming on the planet's surface. When the light faded, the shield generator was gone and a massive crater marked where it had been. Planetary shields down, reported the sensor officer aboard Iron Will. Captain Taehyun's ship is gone, sir. Do-young closed his eyes for a moment, honoring a fallen comrade. Then he opened them and prepared for war. All ships commence bombardment, ordered Admiral Minho. Target the bioshipyards and breeding pools. Leave nothing alive. The human fleet opened fire with everything they had. Railguns sent tungsten slugs screaming through the atmosphere at incredible speeds. Nuclear missiles created mushroom clouds across the planet's surface. Plasma charges turned vast areas into lakes of molten glass, but the Ravagers fought back with desperate fury. Bioships launched themselves from the surface in waves, accepting massive casualties to get close to the human vessels. The space around the breeding world became a hellscape of explosions, acid clouds, and burning debris. Major Choi Hyeri led her fighters through the chaos, hitting targets of opportunity wherever she could find them. This is Phoenix Squadron, she called over the comm. Targeting surface biocannons, we are going in low and fast. Her fighters dove through the toxic atmosphere, their hulls glowing with heat from the re-entry. The biocannons tried to track them, but human fighter pilots had trained in conditions that would kill most organic life. They flew through acid clouds that would dissolve metal, dodged energy beams that could slice through asteroids, and dropped their payloads with surgical precision. Direct hits on targets Alpha through Delta, reported Squadron Leader Song Myung. Biocannons are offline. Confirmed, said Squadron Leader Han Junho. Moving to secondary targets. On the surface, something even more dangerous was happening. Sergeant Baejisu led a ground assault team into the heart of the breeding world's core complex. The mission was simple in concept but nightmare in execution. Place nuclear charges in the planet's main breeding chambers and destroy the hive mind's ability to reproduce. Environmental suits sealed, Jisoo reported to her team. Remember, this atmosphere will kill you in seconds if your suit is breached. The gravity is 3 times Earth normal. The temperature is hot enough to melt lead, and everything here wants to eat us. Sounds like home, said Corporal Ryu Minseo with a grin. The assault team moved through tunnels that pulsed with organic machinery. The walls were alive, covered in sensory organs that tracked their movement. Defensive creatures scuttled in the darkness, waiting for a chance to attack. But the humans had trained for this. Their power armor was designed to function in the deepest ocean trenches on Earth, where the pressure would crush ordinary materials. The toxic atmosphere could not penetrate their seals. The crushing gravity was uncomfortable but manageable. The heat was just another day on Venus. First breeding chamber located, reported Jisoo, looking at a vast cavern filled with millions of larvae. Placing charges now. The nuclear devices were small, but deadly, designed to create maximum destruction in enclosed spaces. Each one would sterilize everything within a 5-kilometer radius, ensuring that no Ravager larvae could survive. Charges placed in Chamber 1, said Minseo. Chamber 2 complete, reported another team member. Chamber 3 armed and ready, called a third. As they worked, the Ravagers threw everything they had at the assault team. Acid-spitting creatures attacked from the walls. Gas vents tried to poison them with toxic fumes. The floor itself came alive, trying to trap them in organic webbing. But humans had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. They adapted quickly, fought dirty, and never gave up. When their weapons jammed, they used knives. When their knives broke, they used rocks. When the rocks were gone, they used their fists. All charges placed, reported Jisoo finally. We have maybe 10 minutes before this place becomes a very bright crater. The extraction was brutal. Ravager creatures swarmed the tunnels, trying to stop the humans from escaping. But the assault team had one advantage the Ravagers could not match. They were willing to die to complete the mission. Go, 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 shouted Jisoo as her team ran through collapsing tunnels. Behind them, the breeding world's immune system was going insane, trying to eliminate the infection that had penetrated its heart. They reached the surface just as their extraction ship arrived. Major Hieri's assault carrier, Storm's Edge, dropped. Out of the clouds, her hull scarred by acid and her weapons still firing at pursuing Ravager creatures. All aboard, called the pilot. This planet is about to become very unhealthy. The ground assault team barely made it to safety before the nuclear charges detonated. The explosions chained through the breeding world's core, setting off secondary reactions in the organic machinery. Entire continents cracked and split as the planet's internal structure collapsed. In space, Admiral Minho watched the breeding world die with satisfaction. The massive bioships that had been launching from its surface stopped coming. The planetary defense systems went silent. The hive mind's voice, which had been screaming across all communication frequencies, suddenly cut off. All enemy resistance has ceased, reported Commander Jiwan. The planet it appears to be breaking apart. Good, said Minho. Now we hunt down the survivors. The final phase of the battle was not a battle at all. It was a massacre. The remaining Ravager ships, cut off from their breeding world and their hive mind, tried desperately to escape. But human pursuit doctrine was simple. Run them all down. Captain Lee Sun-hee led the hunt with cold efficiency. Her fast attack ships chased fleeing bio-vessels through asteroid fields, nebulae, and even into the outer darkness between star systems. This is Sun-hee to all pursuit units, she said over the comm. Remember, these creatures learn from every encounter. If even one escapes, it carries our tactics back to any surviving swarms. No prisoners, no survivors, no mercy. The hunt took days, but the humans were patient. Deep in the darkness between stars, the Ravager hive mind felt something it had not experienced in 1,000 years. Fear. The hive mind was vast, connecting millions of bioships across dozens of star systems. It was ancient, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. It had consumed species that ruled among the stars when the galaxy was young. It had adapted to every weapon, survived every attack, overcome every defense. But these new creatures were different. The memory data from the Kelvor system played through the hive mind like a nightmare. Ships that fired solid metal instead of energy. Weapons that created fire and ice at the same time. Creatures that fought without shields, without fear, without mercy. The worst part was the antimatter. The hive mind had never experienced anything like it. Complete annihilation, matter converted directly to energy. There was no adapting to that. There was no surviving that. There was only death. For the first time in millennia, the Ravager swarm felt doubt. But fear made the hive mind angry, and anger made it dangerous. Adapt, the hive mind commanded its children. Learn, change. These new enemies use different weapons, but they are still organic creatures. They can still be defeated. Across the swarm, bioships began to change. Their hulls grew thicker, developing layered armor that might resist solid projectiles. Their nervous systems reorganized to handle multiple types of damage. New organs grew to process different forms of energy. But the changes were guesses, based on limited data. The hive mind did not understand what it was truly facing. The human fleet moved deeper into Ravager territory like a pack of wolves hunting prey. They had won the first battle, but Admiral Minho knew the real war was just beginning. Intelligence reports show massive swarm movement, said Commander Jiwan, studying the tactical displays. They are pulling ships from across the galaxy, converging on our position. How many? Asked Minho. Conservative estimate? 50,000 ships. Possibly more. Captain Do-young whistled softly. That is a lot of targets. It is a lot of everything, said Captain Sun-hee. We are outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Minho nodded calmly. Standard odds for a human fleet, then. The officers around him smiled grimly. Humans had always been outnumbered. On Earth, they were outnumbered by predators, diseases, natural disasters, and a hostile environment that tried to kill them every day. Being outnumbered was normal. Being outnumbered was home. What about resupply? Asked Major Hyeri. We used a lot of ammunition at Kelvor. Supply ships are en route from Terra, said Jiwon, but they will not arrive for 6 days. Then we fight with what we have, said Minho, and we make every shot count. 3 days later, the Ravager counterattack began. The human fleet was investigating a dead system when the swarm appeared. Not thousands of ships, but tens of thousands. They came out of hyperspace like a plague of locusts, filling the space around the humans with writhing bioships. Contacts, shouted the sensor officer aboard Iron Will. Massive swarm formation bearing 087 Mark IV. Count is... I cannot get an accurate count. There are too many. Captain Do-young looked at the tactical display and felt his blood turn cold. The enemy ship stretched from one side of his sensors to the other, a living wall of death moving toward his fleet. All ships, combat formation, he commanded. Prepare for engagement. The Ravagers had learned from their defeat at Kelvor. Instead of swarming randomly, they attacked in coordinated waves. The first wave consisted of small, fast ships designed to overwhelm human point defenses. The second wave carried the heavy, bioships with thicker armor and more weapons. The third wave held back, ready to adapt to whatever the humans threw at them. They are learning, said Dr. Ciola from her analysis station. Look at their formation. It is more organized than before. Learning is good, said Admiral Minho. It means they are getting smart. Unfortunately for them, we were already smart. The first wave of Ravager ships hit the human defensive line like a tsunami of claws and acid. But the humans were ready. All point defense systems, continuous fire, ordered Captain Do-young. Do not let anything through. The Iron Will's close range weapons came alive, filling space with streams of metal death. Thousands of small projectiles created a wall of destruction that the Ravager scouts could not penetrate. The bioships that tried to break through were shredded instantly, but some got through. They always did. Lieutenant Oh Jin-woo commanded a destroyer that had taken damage early in the fight. His ship's main engines were offline, and his weapons systems were failing one by one. Sir, we have Ravager boarders, reported his security chief. They are trying to break through the hull. How many? Asked Jin-woo. Dozens, maybe hundreds. They are small, fast, and they seem to be immune to energy weapons. Jin-woo nodded. He had expected this. The Ravagers always tried to board damaged ships, hoping to capture technology and crew members for study. Seal all airlocks, he commanded. Flood the damaged sections with... He paused, thinking, what could kill creatures that adapted to everything? Flood the damaged sections with nitrogen, he said. Pure nitrogen, maximum pressure. Sir? Asked the engineer. That will kill anything human in those areas too. There are no humans in those areas, said Jin-woo grimly. And nitrogen is not toxic. It is just absent of what they need. The plan worked. The Ravager boarders were designed to adapt to poisons, radiation, and hostile chemicals. But they could not adapt to suffocation. They needed oxygen to live, just like most organic life. When they breathed pure nitrogen instead, they simply passed out and died. Boarders eliminated, reported the security chief, sounding surprised. Good, said Jin-woo. Now rig the reactor for overload. We are going to ram the command ship. His crew stared at him. Sir, you heard me. If we are going to die, we take as many of them with us as possible. The destroyer's crew worked quickly, knowing they had minutes before the Ravagers adapted to their nitrogen defense. They welded the engine controls in the full ahead position, armed every explosive device on the ship, and prepared for manual control. All hands abandon ship, ordered Jinwoo. Get to the escape pods. What about you, sir? Asked his second in command. Someone has to fly this thing, said Jinwoo with a smile. And I always wanted to see what a bioship looks like from the inside. The destroyer accelerated toward the largest Ravager ship in the swarm, its damaged hull glowing with heat from the overloaded reactor. The enemy tried to destroy it, but the small human ship was too fast and too determined. The collision was spectacular. The destroyer hit the bioship at nearly 1/10 light speed, punching through its hull like a bullet through paper. The reactor overload detonated a fraction of a second later, creating a nuclear explosion inside the enemy vessel. The Ravager command ship broke apart, its organic structure unable to handle the internal destruction. Thousands of smaller bioships lost coordination as their command structure died. That crazy bastard did it, breathed Captain Do-young, watching the explosion from his bridge. He took out their command ship. But the battle was far from over. The second wave of Ravagers was already closing in, and these ships were different. Bigger, tougher, and covered in what looked like metal plates grown over their organic hulls. They adapted to our kinetic weapons, reported the tactical officer. Those plates look like armor. Then we adapt too, said Do-young. Load armor piercing. Rounds. Maximum velocity. The Iron Will's guns fired again, this time using special tungsten cores designed to penetrate the heaviest armor. The rounds hit the armored bioships with incredible force, but many of them bounced off, or only made shallow holes. Minimal damage, reported weapons control. Their armor is too thick. That was when Captain Taehyun's voice came over the comm from Terra's Wrath. This is Taehyun to all ships, he said, and there was laughter in his voice. I think it is time to show them what human creativity looks like. His ship moved toward the armored Ravagers like a dancer, dodging their bioweapons and acid sprays. Instead of firing at their hulls, he targeted their weapon systems with precision strikes. You cannot armor everything, Taehyun said to himself, as he worked. And if you try, you become too slow to fight. His antimatter torpedoes were too valuable to waste on regular enemies, but Terra's Wrath carried other surprises. Penetrating warheads that could drill through armor before exploding inside, plasma charges that could melt metal plates, and his personal favorite, gravity bombs that created localized gravitational fields strong enough to crush even the strongest. Materials. Gravity bomb away, he announced, targeting a cluster of heavily armored bioships. The weapon detonated in the middle of the enemy formation, creating a brief but intense gravitational field. The armored bioships were pulled together with irresistible force, their metal plates crushing under the artificial gravity. When the field collapsed, there was nothing left but a sphere of compressed metal and organic matter. How do you adapt? To gravity? Taehyun asked the empty space where his enemies had been. The battle raged for hours, but slowly the tide turned in humanity's favor. The Ravagers had numbers, but humans had something more important. They had imagination. Every time the swarm adapted to a human weapon, the humans found a new way to kill them. When the bioships grew armor, humans targeted their joints. When they developed acid resistance, humans used base chemicals instead. The Kelver system was dying. 3 planets burned as the Ravager swarm fed on everything they could find. The last Nexari defense fleet fought desperately, their crystal ships flashing with beautiful light. But beauty could not save them. Admiral Forthak commanded the Nexari fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Radiance. His crystal body glowed with fear and rage as he watched his ships die one by one. The Ravagers swarmed over them like hungry insects, their bioships changing and adapting. With each attack, fire all weapons, Forthak commanded. Maximum power. The Nexari ships unleashed everything they had. Energy beams that could melt asteroids, plasma charges that burned like small suns. electromagnetic pulses that could shut down entire planets. The weapons lit up space with incredible colors. For a moment, it seemed to work. Several Ravager ships exploded, their organic hulls unable to handle the concentrated energy. But even as they died, the other creatures learned. Their skin grew thicker. Their bodies developed new organs to absorb energy. Within minutes, the same weapons that had been deadly became useless. "They are adapting too fast," said Vorthak's tactical officer. "Our weapons are having no effect." "Then we die with honor," said Vorthak. He had seen this happen to dozens of other fleets. The Ravagers always won. They always adapted. There was no stopping them. That was when the sensors detected something. "New, unknown ships approaching," said the sensor officer. "Configuration unknown. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database." On the main screen, 50 shapes appeared from hyperspace. They were not like any ships Vorthak had ever seen. No curves, no elegance, no beauty. Just gray metal boxes covered in weapons. They looked like flying fortresses, built for war and nothing else. "What species builds ships like that?" asked the tactical officer. Before anyone could answer, the unknown ships opened fire. Captain Kim Do-young stood on the bridge of Iron Will, watching the battle unfold. The alien ships were pretty, but they were dying. The Ravagers were ugly, but they were winning. Time to change that. "All weapons, target the largest Ravager cluster," he commanded. "Fire when ready." The Iron Will's main guns spoke with the voice of thunder. 20 railguns fired at once, launching tungsten slugs at 15% of light speed. The projectiles were simple pieces of metal, but they hit with the force of nuclear weapons. The Ravager bioships had no defense against pure kinetic energy. The tungsten slugs punched through their hulls like paper, creating massive holes that could not be healed. Several ships exploded instantly, their organic systems unable to handle the trauma. "Direct hits," reported the weapons officer. 17 enemy ships destroyed. "Target the next cluster," said Do-young. "Keep firing." Across the fleet, other human ships joined the attack. Major Choi Hyeri launched her fighters from Storm's Edge, sending them screaming toward the enemy swarm. "This is Phoenix Squadron," said Squadron Leader Han Junho over the comm. "Beginning attack run." The human fighters moved like nothing the aliens had ever seen. They did not fly in pretty formations or follow predictable patterns. They moved like hunters, each pilot thinking independently, adapting to the battle as it changed. "Plasma charges away," called Squadron Leader Song Myung. Her fighter dove through a cloud of Ravager ships, dropping burning death as it went. The plasma charges were designed to create maximum thermal shock. They burned at temperatures that could melt steel, flash heating the bioships' hulls. But before the creatures could adapt to the heat, the fighters followed up with cryobombs that instantly froze the superheated tissue. The rapid temperature change was something the Ravagers had never experienced. Their adaptation systems tried to develop heat resistance and cold resistance at the same time. The conflicting biological changes tore their ships apart from the inside. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Vorthak, watching the human attack. "How are they doing this?" The answer was simple. Humans fought dirty. Where other species used single-type weapons that allowed adaptation, humans used everything at once. Kinetic rounds followed by thermal charges, followed by electromagnetic pulses, followed by chemical explosives. The Ravagers could not adapt fast enough to handle multiple different threats simultaneously. But the real surprise was yet to come. Captain Nam Tae-hyun smiled as Terra's Wrath moved into position. His ship was smaller than the others, but it carried the most dangerous weapons in the human fleet. "Antimatter torpedoes armed and ready," said his weapons officer. "Target the Ravager command ship," said Tae-hyun. "The big one in the center." The command ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of a human dreadnought. Its biohull writhed with activity as thousands of smaller creatures crawled across its surface, making repairs and adaptations. "Firing," said the weapons officer. Antimatter torpedo was beautiful as it flew through space, leaving a trail of light behind it. The Ravagers detected it coming and tried to adapt, growing thicker armor and developing energy absorption organs. It did not matter. When matter meets antimatter, the result is not just an explosion. It is the complete conversion of mass into energy, following Einstein's famous equation. The torpedo contained only a few grams of antimatter, but those few grams became the equivalent of a nuclear weapon. The Ravager command ship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a mountain of living tissue and biometal. The next moment there was only light, brighter than a star, expanding outward at incredible speed. Every Ravager within 10 kilometers of the explosion was vaporized instantly. The shockwave damaged dozens more, and the electromagnetic pulse disrupted their coordination systems across the entire swarm. "By all the stars," breathed Admiral Vorthak. "What kind of weapons are these?" The human fleet pressed their attack. No mercy, no hesitation, no quarter given. They had come to end the threat, and they would not stop until every Ravager was dead. Dr. Yoon Seola watched the battle from her lab aboard the command ship. Her screen showed the biological analysis of the dying Ravagers. The creatures were trying desperately to adapt to human weapons, but they were failing. "Fascinating," she said to herself. "They can adapt to energy, but not to physics. They can develop resistance to heat, but not to kinetic impact. They can absorb radiation, but not antimatter annihilation." The Ravagers had ruled the galaxy through adaptation, but adaptation had limits. There were some forces in the universe that simply could not be adapted to. Humans had found those forces and learned to use them. "The swarm is breaking apart," reported Commander Ji-won from the tactical station. "They are trying to retreat." "Do not let them," said Admiral Minho. His voice was cold as space itself. "Run them all down. No survivors." Captain Lee Sun-hee led the pursuit in her fast attack ship Midnight Hunter. Her vessel and 3 others chased the fleeing Ravagers through the asteroid field at the edge of the system. "This is Sun-hee to all. Pursuit units," she said over the comm. "Remember, these things learn from every encounter. If even one escapes, it will carry our tactics back to the main swarm." The hunt was methodical and brutal. The human ships were faster and more maneuverable than the bioships. When the Ravagers tried to hide in the asteroids, the humans followed them. When they tried to split up, the humans split up too. "Target destroyed," reported one of Sun-hee's pilots. "No survivors." "Confirmed kill on my target," called another. "Clean vaporization." Within 2 hours, the entire Ravager force in the Kelver system was dead. 50,000 bioships reduced to floating debris and expanding gas clouds. The swarm that had seemed unstoppable was stopped. Admiral Vorthak's surviving ships floated, motionless, their crews staring in shock at what they had witnessed. The Nexari had lost 80% of their fleet, but they were alive. The Ravagers were not. "Unknown vessels," Vorthak broadcast to the human fleet. "This is Admiral Vorthak of the Nexari Defense Force. We thank you for your assistance, Admiral." Minho's face appeared on the Nexari screens. His expression was calm, but his eyes held the coldness of deep space. "You are Admiral Vorthak," Minho said. It was not a question. "Yes. May I ask who you are?" "Admiral Kang Minho, Terra Defense Fleet. You called for help." "We did not call Terra specifically," said Vorthak carefully. "The Galactic Council sent a general distress call." "Someone called for help," said Minho. "We came. That is what we do." Vorthak studied the human's scarred face. There were stories about the Deathworlders, terrible stories, but they had just saved his fleet and his people. "The main Ravager swarm is still out there," Vorthak said. "Thousands of ships, maybe millions. This was just a small force." Minho smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Good," he said. "We are just getting started." The human fleet began to move, heading deeper into Ravager territory. Behind them, the wreckage of the swarm drifted in the darkness, a warning to anything that might threaten the innocent. The Deathworlders had tasted battle, and they liked what they tasted.